Welcome to our Devos. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for keeping on building. Of course, we're in the middle of our church's capital campaign, and we are well underway of our church's building for the brand new church. And that means that we have to keep our mindset focused on the prize and what is actually going on with regard to our hearts and how we sacrifice and we come together to finish strong together. That's what we've been talking about. Now, today I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people don't realize, and that is the hidden benefit of sacrificing, not just with money. I'm going to kind of divert from that for a moment, but the hidden benefit of taking an inventory of our lives and taking a look at things that we are doing that we enjoy, that we give up for someone else. When I think about sacrifice, a lot of times I think about my wife. And when she is around the kids, when it comes to the kids, my wife is the most selfless and most self-forgetful person. And the kids will abuse her to a fault with this. And it happens especially when we are away or if we're doing something special. So you know this as well as I do. If you're out, you order food with the kids, you have your kids' food, and then you have your food. Your kids see your food, and what do they say? I want that. I don't want this food that I ordered 2 minutes ago that I really needed. Now I see your food, and that's what I want. My wife is always the person who goes, well, just give them that. I don't care. You could have this. And I'm over there like, you're not getting my food, blah, blah, blah. I don't, it's not that dramatic. But I always say you order what you order and you keep what you get. That's what you do. I'm not saying you won't share, but my wife will always give up something. If we're staying somewhere when we're away, she'll give up the comfortable bed. She'll give up something that is that she wanted for the kids so that they can enjoy more. Now, what we miss about this when it comes to sacrifice, and what I think most mothers know, most parents know, is that there's joy in sacrifice. There's actually joy in sacrificing. There is joy about giving up something that you love for something that you love more. And you find that this little thing that you get to do is a joy to be able to do it. In my own perspective, whenever my wife and I, when we started our family, one of the things that I was really struggling with was I wanted her to be home with the kids, but we couldn't afford it. And most people can't afford it. I know people now are being more creative with how they do it. And we prayed for years. I prayed for years about how I could make this work. Well, then God gave me the idea about a business I could start and contracting I could do with training people and speaking and showing people how to do things. Well, I found out I could actually make quite a bit of money doing this if I became good enough at it. So I worked at it. I worked at it really hard. Well, it took me about 2 years of not getting paid anything to learn the programs, learn how to do it, understand how to work with clients, understand how all that worked in terms of what I do in my already existing skill set with presentations. Well, I remember I'd come home and my wife would be working full-time, I'm working full-time, and then I would see her for a couple minutes, then I would go and I'd drive to Akron for the night, and I'd do a training there and be certified. I flew to Boston to do a training. I flew to New York City to do a training. Nothing I was getting paid for. In fact, I was paying to do this. And every time I would get on an airplane or every time I would get on the highway and I'd be leaving my wife and my daughter at the time, we only had one child at this point, and I'm working towards this goal, I kept thinking, I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for them, I'm doing it for them. And I was giving up my comfort. I was giving up my couch time. I was giving up my time there with them because I knew that this might enable us to one day have her stay home. And that's exactly what happened. When we had our second child, God had provided for me enough and gave me ideas enough that I could bring her home. And she was able to stay with the kids until they went to school. Now, again, same deal. I would be working at the church, a big job, and then I would go to Cleveland to do a training. I would fly to Atlanta to do a training or Nashville to do a training, and I would do all of these things while I'm working, and I'm working on my sermon at the airport, and I'm doing counseling on the phone in the hotel, and I'm doing all the things for the church, and I'm kind of doing all this crazy stuff, and it was crazy, and it was hectic, but I did it all for someone that I loved. And there's this one little thing, not to harp on this, but I found joy that every time I would do a program, I had a little a little Matchbox car that my son Sammy stuck in my bag. And every single time I would do these 4-hour classes, I would take the little car and I'd stick it in the corner of the room. So every time I would get tired or there'd be a difficult participant, I'd stare at that little car and I'd remind myself of why I was there. That's the joy of sacrificing. Giving up something that you love for something that you love more, for someone that you love more. 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 24, David talks about this. And he says, I'm not going to offer burnt offerings to the Lord, my God, that cost me nothing. He said, I'm not giving him the leftovers. He said, I'm going all in. I'm putting myself before him. I am going to do and give of the worst and the hardest of what I can offer, the thing that costs me the most, because I love him more than that which I love over here. And it's okay to like the things you have in your life. It's okay to enjoy the material possessions. It's okay to have nice things. But there is a joy in being able to give up something for something that you love more. And when you find that joy in sacrifice, God will enable you to build. God will enable you to give more. God will enable you to show up in a unique way once he gives you the idea.